Hi everyone, today I want to do a video on carbs and more specifically on what portion of carbs you should be eating. Now carbs are always very much seen as the enemy. You know, when you want to lose weight, cut carbs, and then the weight will drop off. However, what I also find is that people, as much as they can overeat on carbs, they can also undereat on carbs. And what happens when you undereat on carbs is, yeah, okay, sometimes you can lose weight, of course, but what can also happen is that you then aren't full up because you've not enough carbs in your diet as a whole, not necessarily in one specific meal, but in your overall diet. Now what can happen is you can end up picking at more food throughout the day because you're not satisfied by your meals. So undereating on carbs is as big a problem as overeating on carbs, as much as the problems are obviously different. So I thought the reason that people do that is because I don't think anyone really understands what portion of carbs they should be eating. So that's what I thought we would talk about today. As you can see, I've just picked a few carbs. I chose these carbs because these are looser carbs. Obviously bread's easier to portion, it's sliced and things like that. So these carbs in front of me are looser and probably the things that people overeat on and possibly undereat on. But we've got quinoa, rice, couscous, pasta and potatoes. Now, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I was pleasantly surprised by the portions of these three carbs. Slightly more disappointed with these two carbs at the back, but we'll get to them in a minute. So what I did was I weighed out. I'll put all the weights along the bottom. I don't want to talk about numbers too much, but all the details will be along the bottom. I weighed out what the portion size was on each pack. So the portion size on the pack is a good guideline. With everything, with all the foods you eat, it should be dependent on your activity level. So if you're very, very active all the time, you walk a lot, you train hard, your carb consumption should be up a little. If you do a really sedentary job, you don't train at all, your activity levels are very, very low, then you might need to eat slightly less carbs. So you always have to think about your activity level. There's no absolute rule for every single person in the world. So these weights are just a guideline, but I think they are a good guideline, and I think if you stick to them, you would probably find that you would be, your plate of food would be much more balanced. If you think about these three at the front, we'll stick with the quinoa, the rice and the couscous for the moment. Actually, if you think about these as an accompaniment, they're actually quite good portions. When I weighed them all out dry, I thought, oh, this is going to be really disappointing when I see what they look like. But actually, particularly the couscous, I think is actually great. I think you get a great amount of that for the portion. So I don't think these is disappointing, and people will probably be quite happy with this portion alongside their meat and their vegetables. The potatoes are a little sadder, let's be serious. So this it is meant to be the portion of potatoes, and this is actually why potatoes get such a bad name. People always try to avoid potatoes, they swap them for sweet potato. Now sweet potato and white potatoes have much the same amount of calories, so even if you're eating sweet potato, you still have to be aware of the portion. And the issue with potatoes and pasta, again this is a wee bit sadder on the pasta, isn't it? The pasta and the potatoes, the issue is they taste so good. And nobody wants that portion of them because they taste just so good. You want much more, and so that's why these two are probably the most important ones to think about. Potatoes slightly less so than pasta because again, these are more of an accompaniment. So you probably, if you chop these up, might not look so little. But they would still be alongside some meat and veg, so you could probably deal with that portion. And again, I just want to reiterate, if you're having sweet potato, you know, the portion needs to be similar. White potatoes aren't bad, it's the portion we eat of them and what we do with them. So often people are frying white potatoes into chips, and it's that process of frying them, absorbing all that oil, that makes them so bad. So white potatoes don't need to be avoided, just as a side note, they don't need to be avoided, but yeah, you do need to watch your portion. And let's talk about pasta. As an Italian, this makes me really, really sad. But the important thing with pasta, or well, the difficult thing with pasta is pasta's normally the main part of the meal. These are all accompaniments, but pasta's really the core part of the meal, which is why we feel so sad that it looks so little. If that was an accompaniment, we'd probably be like, whoa, that's actually quite good. So it's the context of how we use this food. So my tip with pasta would be actually keep your pasta the same, and I might do a video on this because you would be amazed at how big that portion would look if you put seafood, meatballs, vegetables, you know, if you packed this pasta full of other ingredients. And I think that's the kind of important take home for pasta, is that on its own you're probably going to need double that for you to be satisfied, but with meat and vegetables in it, you'd actually get a really great bowl of pasta and you'd probably be quite happy. So it's also thinking about how to use these carbs in the best way, because we do eat with our eyes as well. Nobody wants a half-filled plate. Just before you've even eaten it, you look down and you think, oh, that's not going to fill me up. So there's a psychology with eating as well. It's not just how we feel afterwards. If we're looking at a plate of food and it looks nice and full, we feel more satisfied automatically. So that's the important thing with pasta. Don't start eating half bowls of pasta. Put more things into it and that will help. But I actually think the take home from this is that you can eat a good amount of carbs on the whole. You do have to obviously take into account how much carbs you're eating. And if, for example, you want more, so you want more rice than that, you want more pasta than that, you want more potatoes than this, that's fine. You can do that, but you just have to be aware that you've eaten a larger portion of carb in one meal and therefore need to eat a smaller portion of carb or no carbs in another meal. So that's kind of what I would do as well. So sometimes with pasta, I keep coming back to the pasta, obviously it's a lot for me to deal with, that this is the portion of pasta. But I think it is also one of the most commonly eaten foods in every household in the country, so I think it is important. What I would do with pasta is, if I didn't really want any veg or meat in my pasta, I just wanted a plain pasta with a nice light sauce, which I love. It's one of my favourite things to have. If I wanted to have a bigger bowl than that, then I just would. But I would be aware that I had a large portion of pasta and therefore my carb intake for that meal was very, very high, and I would maybe have no carbs at the other meals in my day, or just very little carbs. So it's all about how you work it. You've got to work your meals and your day and even your week as a whole. Don't look at things so one meal at a time. Look at your diet as an overall and see how you can balance that up. So there is room for a big bowl of pasta, or even pizza and things like that. There is room for that in your diet, but it's always a balancing act. So you've always got to weigh up those extra carbs with maybe some less carbs the next day or the next meal. So I think just some insight into portion size. I think portion size is really important, and getting to know a bit more about your food is really, really important. So I think some positives and negatives from this, but please comment and let me know what you think about these portion sizes.